me now. He is a brilliant digital strategist, author of 1 Million Followers. Get the book now if you want to increase your social media footprint.
You have to find some way to stand out and grab their attention.
How did you end up working with these A-star superstars?
MTV said, hey, do you want to meet Taylor Swift? I did a movie called Crank with Jason Statham. I've spent the past 20 years focused on how and why certain story breaks through, goes viral, stands out, versus why do others fall flat.
So you're obviously MTV has said, go and meet Taylor Swift. What's the goal at that point?
I built what became like the first ever kind of micro influencer advertising platform.
You did it. 1 million followers in 30 days. Talk me through the process.
Social media is kind of like tip of the iceberg. People only see the tip of the iceberg of the people that are generating millions of views and succeeding. They don't look at below the iceberg where 99% of the volume of content is there not achieving success.
Where's the line when it comes to authenticity?
Our company has spent over 15,000 hours analyzing storytelling across these platforms. Is
it important for organizations to have a person who is flying the flag?
There's a lot of self-doubt that creeps in when you kind of put that step forward.
What's a typical framework for a compelling story?
Compared to 30 years ago, people probably consume more content in a single day than they used to in 30 days.
What do companies get wrong when they talk about, or when they're creating marketing campaigns?
That's the first and the most important part. The first thing that you have to realize is
Hello and welcome to the Future Workplace Podcast. Now, the idea behind the Future Workplace Podcast is that we bring experts together who have some input into the future workplace. It initially started as physical environment, the stuff that you sit in, the furniture, the technology. But what's happened over the course of us conducting this podcast, it becomes more and more about humans. What do humans need? What kind of performance enhancement do they need to be able to reach their maximum potential within that workplace? And within that, we bring experts together to answer those questions. All we ask from you is that you like and you subscribe this podcast. If it's of interest, like, subscribe, and leave some comments. Let me know some of the other things that you want to achieve when you come and listen to this podcast as well. Now, we're talking about humans. We're talking about what the future of workplace looks like. You've got the huge movement in AI at the moment and social media. And I have a guy with me today who quite literally wrote the book on the importance of personal branding when it comes to companies, basically. I've got a couple of the books here. Author of 1 Million Followers, author of Hook Point, and others. It's Brendan Kane. Hello, Brendan.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to connect with you and everybody that's tuning into this.
Yeah, and it seems a bit weird because obviously your accent is from the other side of the pond, and you're sat here in Maidenhead with me, which is not the most glamorous of places in the world. So thank you for coming in. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Let's talk about that then. So I mean, clearly, right? I am, for the audience more than anything, I'm a fan. These are actually my personal books. You very kindly brought in a couple more books, but I've been a fan of yours since started reading this stuff, and I wanted to explore what the future of workplace looks like and the importance of the things that you cover in the book. I'm not going to give that away just yet, but the importance of the things that you cover in these books. So thanks for coming in. Let's talk about you first. So give me a background on you. Who are you? Why have I invited you in here? And bring me up to speed in terms of your background.
Well, why I'm here today is I've spent the past 20 years focused on one single thing, and that is how and why certain stories, certain brands, certain content breaks through, goes viral, stands out, versus why do others fall flat. So I started in social media back in 2005, so over 20 years ago, and I didn't kind of necessarily set out to get started in that. I actually started in the movie industry, and I wanted to produce films and moved out to LA, started a movie studio. And like everybody else, I started at the bottom making coffee, copies, deliveries, was just kind of like an errand boy, like you all always start out at. Mm-hmm. And when people would ask me, the people I really wanted to connect with, movie producers, studio executives, actors, the people I really wanted to forge relationships, asked me, why did I move to Los Angeles? I said I wanted to produce movies. And I could see everybody's eyes glaze over because I was one of a million with that pipe dream. So I literally had to take a step back and just say, well, what am I doing here? Like, what is my value? How do I actually stand out?
Yeah.
So I took a step back and I analyzed the environment that I was in, the first studio I worked for. And I noticed that there was a sense of anxiety and stress that would come over the office every time we finished a film. Because every time you make a movie, you're investing tens of millions, in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars into a single piece of content.
Yeah.
But it's not like any other industry where you have years or decades to build this brand.
Yeah.
You literally have months to get hundreds of millions of people around the world to know about this piece of content. So at the time, social media was just emerging. MySpace was the prominent player. YouTube was in its first year. And Facebook was still reserved for college students. So I was starting to analyze what was happening there. And it was just fascinating to see that people from their bedrooms with web cameras were reaching millions and millions of people. So I went to the head of the studio and I said, well, why don't we tap into these people that have forged these connections to promote our movies? And that kind of started my way into kind of social media, where the first campaign I did was the first ever influencer campaign on YouTube.
Yeah.
Back in 2006 for it was a movie called Crank with Jason Statham. But that's initially how I got into this space.
That's unbelievable. That's the old heart.
Yes.
Remind me.
If you stop moving, you die.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I remember that. I was in the military back then, so I was still a young lad, and those sorts of things, that kind of alpha male, like adrenaline of those sorts of movies. Brilliant. Loved it. So this is 2006. You kind of recognize this trend for trying to lean on other people's audiences, right? MySpace. Give me a little bit of a background into things like, how did you end up working with these great, these A-star superstars? Taylor Swift's the first one I'm going to mention. Talk me through that journey and how you kind of got into that.
So I was working in the movie studio for a few years, and I quickly kind of realized that it was just another corporate environment. Like looking at the movie studios and movie production and things from the outside, it kind of seems super glamorous and creative and exciting. In reality, it's just another corporation. So I was kind of getting bored with that because at heart, I'm an entrepreneur. I like to test. I like to experiment. I like to try things. And in a corporate environment, you're kind of restricted in terms of what you can actually test and try. So I actually created, off the back end of creating that first ever influencer campaign on YouTube, seeing the success of that, I decided that I wanted to kind of explore that further. So at the time, Fox had bought MySpace for $580 million. And I wanted to understand, well, why did they spend so much money on this asset? Now, it doesn't seem like a lot of money now when you look at like how much like Instagram or WhatsApp bought for, but this was at the beginning stages of social media. And I realized in studying this is there was no real solid business model there. They didn't have their own ad platforms like Facebook and YouTube and TikTok have today. But what there was there is, if you can remember back to MySpace, it was all about customizing your profiles. It was like putting your favorite movie trailer, your poster, changing the colors of your backgrounds. It was all about personalization.
Yeah.
And I just saw that was the most valuable form of advertising, of me taking this movie trailer, me taking a Nike poster or a Prada poster, products I love, customizing my MySpace profile with it and saying, I love this. You should check it out too. Yeah. But nobody was monetizing it. It was the most valuable form of advertising. It was peer-to-peer sharing. So I built what became like the first ever kind of micro influencer advertising platform where people could take those same assets and they would get paid every time their friends engaged with it, and the platform would as well.
Yeah.
So I ended up licensing that to MTV and Viacom and created several different iterations of that platform and another platform that could kind of dynamically generate enterprise level fan ecosystems without writing code. And that's where MTV said, hey, do you want to meet Taylor Swift? Now, at the time, I didn't know who Taylor Swift was.
This is early.
This is early. I think it was like, and I'm bad with dates, but it's anywhere between 2009 and 2011. It was very early stage for her and her process.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was the goal? So you're obviously MTV has said, go and meet Taylor Swift. What's the goal at that point?
Well, the partnership with MTV was they were realizing that they were building these stars off of their networks, through music videos and TV shows and things of that nature, but they weren't participating in the upside of it.
Yeah.
So there was an initiative within MTV that was, how do we build tools that these people can use that allow us to participate in the upside? So the goal of bringing us to Taylor Swift was, how do we take this rising star that was capitalizing off of social media? How do we take that awareness? How do we take that traffic, drive it to a destination that she can own and control, and monetize that attention?
Yeah.
So that was really the focus. I mean, we worked with her team for like two to 3 years, just specifically on that goal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. Just and having read your books, which one came first, by the way? I'm not sure which
1 million followers came first.
I read them the wrong way around then, so I read Hook Point first. So 1 million followers came first. I want to dive into this. So clearly, I mean, you also speak about why you got the title 1 million followers as well, and how you tested the theories and the 4-hour work week, Tim Ferriss, and how he did the same when he did all that kind of stuff. Talk to me about this, and how did that kind of MTV, your recognition for trying to create one piece of content in terms of a movie and get loads and loads of eyes onto it, and you recognize that quite early. Influencers, although that's a term now, it probably wasn't a term back then. You recognize that quite early. How did that all lead to this book, 1 million followers?
So I spent, a few years in the movie studios. I built these technology platforms, worked with big, celebrities and in professional athletes and actors and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. And there was, I wanted to share that knowledge with people at scale because, one, I love to educate. But there was also this experience that I had in creating this technology startup after I had did those experiments with MTV and working with Taylor Swift and things. And ultimately that startup failed. And it failed because I focused too much on the product, too much on perfecting all the bells and whistles to make it this, like Death Star of like the most amazing tools that you could engage with, and less on how do I actually drive attention to that. So I spent years of my life building this startup, building this amazing tool that ultimately failed because it didn't have the right attention on the marketing, on generating eyeballs to know it existed. So I never wanted to make that mistake again. And I was determined that whatever I did going forward, I would focus a tremendous amount of energy, effort on driving awareness to me, to the tools, to the companies that I help build.
Yeah.
So on the back end of that, I was trying to figure out, well, what was the best way to go about that? And, as you mentioned, like I was inspired by Tim Ferriss and the 4-hour work week of how an amazing hook that was and tool that would drive people to him, to his brand. Because again, I never wanted to go knock on doors for clients. I wanted the clients to come to me. But the issue that I was running into is with all of my experiences, like I would always see people, even friends, saying, yeah, Brendan, that's great, but you had success because you were working with Taylor Swift. You were working with MTV or Paramount or IKEA, these major global brands.
Yeah.
But I spent years testing the methodologies and testing so much content that I knew that it wasn't limited to just celebrities and superstars. It could be leveraged for anybody at any level, even people starting from scratch or zero. So I knew I needed to overcome that objection. I knew needed to kind of prove that. And I just spent quite a bit of time of like, well, what does that look like? And I just came to the conclusion, well, if that is the big objection, I have to prove that it can be done. I have to prove that it can be done starting from scratch for 0 followers. It isn't on a billboard, not on the cover of a magazine, not on TV or films. And then I said, okay, that sounds like an interesting hook. Yeah. But who am I going to do that on? And I had to sit there and think, and I was like, well, why not myself? I was always behind the scenes. I wasn't on TMZ. Yeah,
you'd be on the MTV logo.
Yeah, I wasn't ever in front of the camera. So that's where I set out on this journey of generating 1 million followers in 100 countries in 30 days. Now, it wasn't an experiment on whether I could do it.
Right.
I knew I could do it because I've tested so much data.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a lot of self-doubt when you go out there and you say, I'm going to do this.
Your name's on the line.
Yeah, I called up one of the biggest literary agents in the industry. I said, hey, will you sign me as a client if I do this? I told my friends in the industry that I'm going to do this. There's a lot of self-doubt that creeps in when you kind of put that step forward to go off and do it. And that's kind of where the backstory of that.
Did you ever see that guy? I can't remember the guy's name now, but he did Fit to Fat to Fit. Did you ever see that guy?
No.
Similar kind of concept. He was a fitness instructor, PT, based over in America. And he was always telling his clients, you can get fit. And, you know, all you have to do is this. And all you have to... And his clients, who were a little bit more overweight than what he was, were all saying, it's fine for you. You know, you can bench press this. You can run this. And he did the same thing on his socials, where he went through a kind of an experiential journey where he went from fit to fat to fit. And there was a timeline on it as well. But it's a similar kind of concept as to what you're talking about there, where he went, I'm going to put my name on a chopping block here. And he did it. He managed it. And obviously he's documenting everything and doing everything, you know, according to science and medical advice and all the rest of it. But his socials absolutely blew up as a result of it. Check it out if you get a second. Now, you did it. 1 million followers in 30 days. Talk me through the process. So you talk an awful lot about testing. You've obviously got a massive knowledge base from your time and doing the things that you were doing. Talk me through the journey. You start with zero. You open a Facebook page and there's nothing on there. What's the step? What do the steps look like?
So the first step is understanding how and why certain content performs versus other content doesn't. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make as they approach social media, approach creating a brand, approach creating content, is that they just create content. They come up with ideas and throw things at the wall and hope something sticks. The problem with that is most of the time it doesn't stick.
Yeah.
And even if something does stick, they don't understand why. And thus they go back to repeating that pattern until they hit one again.
Yeah.
So our company has spent over 15,000 hours analyzing storytelling across these platforms. And what we really look for is called a format, which is a storytelling structure that has proven to repeat itself over and over and over again and have success.
Yeah.
There are thousands of these structures, these formats out there. Just to give you an example, like that everybody has seen, and this is not meant to be like a recommendation. It's more so to kind of demonstrate what a format looks like, is man on the street.
Right.
So a person approaches a random stranger on the street, engages with them, and a story unfolds. So you have accounts like School of Hard Knocks that goes up to successful people, ask them, how did you make your first $1 million? You have an account like Body by Mark, who approaches fit people on the street and asks them what is their fitness routine. You have photographers like Alex Stemp that approaches random strangers and offers them a professional photo shoot.
Yeah.
So that is a format that has proven to repeat itself time and time again. Now, first off, the interesting thing about social media is people think it's like this mystery black box. It's something new that you need a Willy Wonka lottery ticket to succeed. The first time the man on the street format was used was in 1954.
Oh, Jesus.
For the first season of The Tonight Show.
Right.
So the reason I point that out is social media is nothing new. It's history repeating itself in that storytelling is the driving force of success or lack thereof.
Yeah.
So in terms of the experiment of 1 million followers or working with anybody, even if they're starting from scratch or zero, it's what is the format that is going to match this person for their authentic voice, match their message, match their personality type. And then what we do is we don't just kind of look at a format like Man on the Street and be like, oh, I see what they're doing. They just approach a random stranger. I'm just going to go do that.
Yeah.
If you do that 9 times out of 10, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Like what we do is we take a format like that and our team will spend between 15 to 20 hours analyzing it. What we do is we open up a spreadsheet and we take 20 of the high performers, the ones that are driving millions and millions of views.
Yeah.
Then we take 20 that are the average performers, they're kind of like the medium. They're not really breaking through, but they're not bombing. And then we take 20 of the underperformers. So we call it gold, silver, bronze.
Yeah.
So gold is the high performers, silver is the medium, bronze is the underperformers. And what we're doing is we're trying to identify like what are the storytelling elements that are showing up in those high performers. we call them performance drivers. They drive performance up or drive performance down. So these things can be like the pacing, what type of tension is built, how difficult is it for the person to actually get what you're trying to get across to them?
Yeah.
What's happening in those first 3 seconds? What does the hook look like? But we're trying to identify what happens in those high performers. And then we go to the low performers and we see, do those things actually show up in the low performers? Because if they show up in the low performers, then we know that's not the reason that it's driving performance. If it doesn't, then that leaves us a clue.
Yeah.
If we were to go down and use this storytelling format, we need to focus on these things and avoid these things. So that's where I start every time with the experiment on myself or anybody at any level on social media is, what is the format that we're going to leverage?
Yeah.
And then getting a deep understanding of what that format looks like.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? It's because you get the people who are known for that. There's a guy over here called Simon.
Simon Squibb.
That's it. Yeah, so he's all about what is your dream. And
Man on the street.
Man on the street. And there's another guy whose name I can't remember now, but he does the career ladder. 90-second reel. Have you seen that one?
Yes. Man on the street again.
Yeah, another man on the street thing.
Yeah.
It's so as you're talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I've
But
followed.
why do they do it? Because it works.
It works. Yeah.
But people will look at that and be like, oh, that's such an innovative concept.
Yeah.
That's brand new. It's not.
Do you know what's funny? There was no data or anything like what you're talking about here. When I went on the street, probably in August time, just with my videographer, and we went round and just stopped and asked people in the middle of London, middle of the city, do you prefer to work at home or do you prefer to work in the office? I didn't have a clue. Like you just said a minute ago, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I just said to my videographer, just record me. And so I went round, microphone, stopped a few people in the street. Do you prefer to work at home or do you prefer to work in the office? We got loads of views. But there was no planning behind it. It was just me completely winging it, to be honest with you. But again, man on the street makes you, probably you're quite authentic, I'd assume.
So there's a few things that work for man on the street that allow it to work. And again, if you don't really understand how and why it works, you're ultimately not going to have that level of success because the way social media is kind of like tip of the iceberg. It's like people only see the tip of the iceberg of the people that are generating millions of views and succeeding. They don't look at below the iceberg where 99% of the volume of content is there, not achieving success doing the same format.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons that man on the street has such a high ceiling is, number one, there's an inherent tension built in from a subconscious level of you're approaching or interacting with a random stranger on the street. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Is this person going to reject you? Are they going to get mad? What are they going to say? There's this kind of unknown factor that happens. In addition, if you ask the right question in the right way, you will get a solid reaction from the person that you're interviewing.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like the reason it worked for you is, one, there's that inherent tension building of what's going to happen in this experience. But number two is you're setting up an interesting question of you want to see what the response of this person is going to be and why. Because that question, would you rather work at home or the office, impacts so many
quite
different
polarizing.
people. It is, and it's polarizing. So there's another, I don't know if you know Chris Stowe, he's the founder of the Future.
Yes, yeah.
So he's a good friend.
FUTR.
Yeah,
Yes.
so, and I've done his podcast a few times in like 2 or 3 podcasts ago that I did with him. I kind of said you should go and do the man on the street format. And we brainstormed on the podcast, okay, well, what should be the question that I asked? And the hook that I came up with him on the podcast is, how much money do you get paid an hour? Because he had a viral video way back then where he broke down kind of like why you shouldn't charge by the hour. And it got like 80 million views.
Yeah.
So since doing that and asking that question, he's like, his performance has gone like 5 or 10.
Do people answer?
Yeah.
That's mental.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But that's the thing is like, it is a polarizing question. It's an interesting question, whether you make little or whether you make a lot of understanding the psychology behind that and the story that unfolds with it.
Yeah.
But I will say, again, I say it's super important to choose something that feels authentic and right to you.
Yeah.
Not because something worked. I tried man on the street. It wasn't for me because I'm not an extrovert. And to me, like going around in public, on a busy street and asking people, it just doesn't fit for me.
Yeah. We had that. I had that conversation when we started this whole thing around personal branding, which we're going to go into in a minute, and the importance or not of personal branding within a corporate environment. I'm going to do that bit in a bit. But we had the same conversation where it was around authenticity. I was in the military for 13 years. I've been a sports guy for my whole life in locker rooms and, quite sweary environments and stuff. And it's also one of the questions that we raise in here, which is around at what point where's the line when it comes to authenticity? I'm from a military background, sports background. I do swear in my everyday life. Do you be authentic to the point where you could potentially offend people, or do you go, well, this is who I am?
So I look at authenticity a bit different. You have to realize that people on social media, the audience you're trying to reach, they're professional content consumers at this point. They consume so much content on a daily basis. Like compared to 30 years ago, people probably consume more content in a single day than they used to in 30 days. So when I look at authenticity, it's more about what is happening on the subconscious mind of the person that's consuming that content. And if you don't feel connected to what you're doing and how you're doing it, that's going to come off on screen in a very subtle way that the audience probably wouldn't be able to pinpoint. But the minute they sense that, they're scrolling to the next piece of content. So I think it's more about that than kind of thinking about it at that level of like, do I need to be authentic? How authentic should I be? Like, if you're not feeling authentic and you're trying to be something else, it's going to show up. Which
is the reason I made a decision to go, screw it. I'm going to talk normally, you know, and if the odd swear word comes out, don't worry about it, because that's who I am. So that's one of the reasons we went down that route. So you mentioned man on the street, not your thing. You've tried it, didn't work. Authenticity probably was a large part of that. You're an introvert. What was the thing? What was the framework that you said, okay, well, that's going to work for me. That's what's going to get me to 1 million followers.
So when I set out to do the 1 million followers experiment the first time, and just the model that I started with that book. So I did that experiment late, like around 2016, 2017. But the foundations of that have been used to generate over 60 billion views and 100 million followers.
Got it on here, look.
Yeah, it's been used across every industry and every sector. So I just want to kind of, like, the personal experiment on myself, we've proven it time and time again. So the foundation there can be leveraged by anybody. But when I was doing that, I was purely doing that as an experiment. I wasn't trying to become an influencer. I was really trying to run this experiment and document. So I tested a lot of different things. I tested podcast clips, worked really well. So I went out and recorded 10 podcasts with different people, tested that. I tested like inspirational quotes, positive quotes. I did, some talking head videos in different formats that way. I even tested some political based content to see kind of how that would perform. But the mixture of those, I tested different kind of subject matters within the confines of these different formats to see, number one, what would get somebody to follow, but more importantly, what would get somebody to share that content at a high velocity.
Yeah. And talk to me about that testing then, because you speak in depth. And I've actually seen some of the clips that have been when I was doing some research around the testing side of things. If someone was to try and test a concept today from scratch, if I want to go and test a man on the street concept, I don't know, like I said a minute ago, I don't really know anything about it, but if I was to go and try and test a man on the street concept, what's the process behind me doing that?
Well, the first step is you actually have to study the format. So you have to go out and look at those high performers versus the low performers and try and diagnose what causes this format to truly break through versus this format to fail. And the big thing that I want to stress is don't pay attention to the content. Push the content aside. Pay attention to the context of how they are using that format. So if you are going to use Man on the Street and you're watching Simon Squibb, even though Simon Squibb is talking about how to have a dream and you're going to be talking about nutrition or real estate or finances, push aside the content of what he's talking about and more of how is he actually leveraging the format? What are the nuances to it? So how is he creating tension with the person? What is the type of reaction that he's going for? How is he inserting himself into it? And looking at those variables when Simon's generating millions of views versus when Simon's only generating 100,000 views or less.
Yeah.
That's the first and the most important part. Because if you don't understand how and why something works, you're not going to be able to recreate it. It's kind of like I am not a cook, you know, I'm not a cook, so I go to Chipotle almost every day. And even though I go and eat at Chipotle every day, I would have no clue how to recreate the burritos and the burrito bowls that I eat because I don't know the temperatures. I don't know the spices and the ingredients and all those things. And the same thing goes with social media is you need to kind of understand these elements before you step into the kitchen to create content.
Yeah.
Then you can actually go out there and create the content. Now, what I recommend is not to try and batch produce content. Now, man on the street's a bit different because you're going to have to go out there for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to just see what you get.
Yeah.
But the important thing is go out there and create a few pieces of content and then come back and put your piece of content on one side of the screen and then the reference that you studied on the other side of the screen and play them side by side and be really honest with yourself. And if it's a struggle, then bring a friend or a partner or somebody and then just determine like what is the gold standard, the reference doing versus what I'm doing. Where am I falling short?
Yeah.
And use that experience to learn and refine and do that over and over and over again. So the process itself is pretty simple, but it's not easy. It's very in-depth. It's very nuanced.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I always find with Simon's, I mean, I don't follow him particularly. I just see he must be on my algorithm, must just pick up. But I always find that I always wonder whether he actually follows up with the things that he talks about. So I think one of the things he always does, Mr. Beast does the same as well, actually, where there's always some kind of reward where he's asking somebody, what's your dream? And then they say, oh, I want to be a fashion designer. There's a reward that he gives and goes, right, well, go and do it. And we'll come back in a year's time. There's £1,000 or whatever. We'll come back in a year's time. But I've never actually seen the climax of that story. So I don't know whether he actually follows through with it or not.
He does with some of them. He definitely does. Yeah.
Does he? Okay. Mr. Beast does the same. There's loads of like, you know, don't move outside of this circle and I'll give you $1 million, which is, again, we're going to talk about hook points in a minute.
Well, the interesting thing is Mr. Beast with that, he has kind of made a transition over the past year and a half where he, in a lot of this came from doing Beast games with Amazon Prime. In studying and prepping for kind of, you know, streaming, which is more of a kind of linear progression to storytelling, because social media is not a linear progression. Like you could, and this is why you don't see a lot of kind of like episodic on social media, because somebody could be thrown into episode 3 versus episode 1 and things of that nature. But Mr. Beast started to realize I really need to learn how to build characters in the storylines.
Right.
So now you will see like one of the guys that did like the weight loss challenge.
Saw that one.
It was one of his most successful videos of late.
Yeah.
That character was built. So now he appears in other challenges and other videos because the audiences have built a connection with him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I saw that one. And there's a little bit, I mean, he had some bad news, didn't he, halfway through with his PT who unfortunately passed away halfway through the whole challenge. And so you've got all of that stuff that goes on with it as well, where you get this connection to him. There's a Russell Brunson talks a lot about like the format of a good story, and I can't remember the exact way that he does it, but he talks about the hook, and then he talks about the challenge that people go through, the end goal being this, but the challenge that people go through, the hoops you have to jump through to deal with those challenges, and then the exercise at the very end. What, in your opinion, is for people listening, that they go, right, I need to kind of create some following, I want to kind of start looking at this personal branding. What's a typical framework for a compelling story that you can fit into a 90-second reel, for example?
So it depends on the format, but there's some variables that are consistent throughout. The first thing you have to look at is, are you setting up a clear expectation about what this content is going to deliver? So the setup is really important because, one, the setup has to convey this video or this piece of content is worth paying attention to. Now, this is going to rub some people the wrong way. But the reality is everything has been said, everything has been done. So you have to kind of like forget this concept of originality in terms of like creating something new from scratch. That's a new idea.
Yeah.
Where the originality comes through is how can you leverage a format in the context of how you're going to deliver something that has been said 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So the minute that somebody watches the first 3 seconds of a video, pick any topic right now. What's
Football, the World Cup. The World Cup draw was on a few weeks ago.
The World Cup. So let's just say that you're giving a perspective on the World Cup that X, Y, and Z player is the best player in football today. It's most likely that people have already heard that 1,000 times.
Yeah.
If you don't come in with a unique perspective on either a different football player or a unique aspect of who that football player is, you're likely going to get scrolled past.
Yeah.
So you have to set a clear expectation of why should I pay attention to this, but also why this is going to be different than anything that you've ever heard before.
Yeah.
Then through the story, you need to make sure that there is a clear payoff. And you have to make sure that that payoff is not happening too soon.
Yeah.
Because if the payoff happens in those first, few seconds, then why do they need to stick around and watch the rest of it?
Yeah.
Now, through that storytelling, you were mentioning kind of challenge. Like one of the biggest aspects of successful storytelling is creating some type of tension.
Yeah.
There has to be tension in what you're saying. Now, that doesn't mean it needs to be like a conflict or a fight or something like that. But there has to be, so like, for example, one of the top YouTubers is Mark Rober. He's a former NASA engineer and runs all these engineering experiments. And one of them, his most viewed videos was, are sharks really attracted to blood? Right. So he sets his expectation with the title and the thumbnail. He says, I'm going to, through the course of this video, I'm going to determine, are sharks really attracted to blood?
Yeah.
But he doesn't reveal the answer in the first, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
He goes through these series of experiments to figure out if it actually happens.
Yeah.
So in any favorite movie that you watch, especially like action movies like Mission Impossible, like any movie that you watch, there's an inherent conflict. There's some type of bad guy, there's some type of problem, there's some type of drama that the protagonist is facing. And the whole movie, the whole story is about, is this protagonist going to solve this problem?
Yeah.
But they don't do it in the first few minutes. There's the ups and downs, ups and downs, the ups and downs of it. So people, in terms of telling stories from a personal brand, they have to be careful of being too kind of monotone. And to kind of put it in like a perspective is, like for everybody watching this, just think about that one friend or that one person that kind of puts you to sleep every time they tell a story because they're so
I've already
flat.
thought of it.
They're all so flat and, boring. But that other person, that other friend that you have that can take like walking to the tube station in the morning into the most like insane and exciting story, even though there's not much there to it.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, it's fascinating. It's I've most certainly got. So we've got Christmas next week. I'm definitely going to be coming across my monotone family member falling asleep. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the podcast so far. I'm just going to take a quick 30 seconds of your time to explain to you one of the biggest problems that people have when it comes to fitting out their new office space. And that problem is they get AV in too late. When you get AV in too late, what happens is they treat it as an afterthought. They treat it as a bolt-on. It's a few screens on a wall. Let's just put some screens on and make it work. Massive, massive, massive mistake. And we see it day in, day out, where people treat AV as an afterthought. To try and avoid that mistake, you need to bring AV in, the design of AV in really early as you possibly can. Now, to try and help you with that, we've put together what we call an AV bundle. It's a bundle. The link is in the description below, and it gives you the ability to configure your own AV meeting room so you know what solution you're putting in the rooms. It gives you a risk map for the project so you know when to bring AV in, and it gives you a budget calculator so that you can budget AV in early as opposed to later when you realize that AV, frankly, isn't as cheap as what everybody thinks. So grab the bundle below, get AV in as early as you possibly can, and avoid the mistakes that lots of our clients actually do when it comes to refitting their offices. You mentioned about the kind of the structure of a story. You've written a book on the first 3 seconds, the hook. It's clearly an important part of the story. talk to me about why this is the subject of a book. Why you felt it so important that you needed to write a book on the first 3 seconds.
So the world has completely shifted over the past 30 years. So if you think about 30 years ago, how do you kind of reach the masses? How do you reach the masses, or even just your core audience with a message?
Yeah.
Well, you typically had to be like, have a publicity team, a marketing budget, get on a billboard, get a magazine ad on the cover of a magazine or in the newspaper. It was limited to a certain number of people. It was kind of a luxury that you could do. But today, all of us have one of these in our pocket.
Yeah.
And literally with a click of a button, with a great story, we can reach millions of people. It's commoditized and decentralized, reaching the masses with communication. So when I first started on social media in 2005, there's less than 50 million people on these platforms. So again, MySpace was the predominant player, had 25 million. Facebook was at 6 million. YouTube was around 8 million. And there was still Friendster in there and some other small ones. By 2010, it reached 1 billion people on these platforms.
Yeah.
By 2015, it was 2 billion. By 2020, it was 4 billion. Today, it's 5.2 billion people.
Yeah.
So we live in a world where everybody has this device in their pocket. They can press record and reach people with their message. So what that has created is a tremendous amount of noise and competition. In terms of building a personal brand or a company, you're no longer just competing against your direct competitors. Whether in a personal brand, you're competing against the other people that are trying to get a raise or a promotion or that next job, or company, you're competing against your direct competitors. You're competing with every teenage TikTok influencer. You're competing with Netflix. You're competing with ESPN.
Yeah.
You're competing with Paramount, Kim Kardashian, all of these people out there for attention. And because there's over 1 billion pieces of content uploaded across these platforms every single day, there is this fight for attention. And attention is kind of like the new oil. It's the most valuable resource out there. But as we've talked about, you have less than a few seconds because we're just in this constant death scroll of going through. Is like, there are two key variables to creating successful content on these platforms. Number one is, can you grab attention in those first 3 seconds? Can you stop the scroll? And then number two, can you tell a compelling story to hold that attention?
Yeah.
So it's grabbing the attention and then retaining that attention. But if you don't master those first 3 seconds, you have no possibility of even getting to your story. And that's why I dedicated an entire book specifically to that, because if you can't master that part, it doesn't matter how good your story is, it's going to get left in the dust.
What does it take to master it, though? Is it explosions and, kissing babies' heads, or what? Like, what does it take? Is it a bit more subtle than that?
The first thing is, anything can grab and hold attention. Everything can break through. Insurance breaks through, fitness, nutrition, like mindset coaching. It doesn't matter the industry. It matters how you tell this story and the story that you tell that does it. So a few things. Number one, are you saying something different that somebody hasn't heard it before in the way that you've said it?
Yeah.
So, like, for example, let's just say we're creating a video about meditation. I'm a meditation instructor. If I say meditation is the key to calmness, well, I already know what that's going to say. Like, you're telling me what it's going to say, and I've probably heard that a million times.
Yeah.
But if I subvert the expectations and flip it on his head and say, meditation is a scam, it's like, well, what is that? Like, I haven't heard that meditation is a scam.
Yeah.
And I can still take that and still play into, if I would do that video and say, you know what? Have you ever tried meditation and it just didn't work for you? At one point in time, like, I tried meditation and they told me to sit still and clear my head. I was like, this is a complete scam.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Until I found these 3 tips from a Buddhist monk that allowed me to meditate for hours on end and completely transform my life.
Yeah.
So I'm taking that same concept of meditation and bringing people into a way, saying, I have a different perspective on a way that you haven't heard it before, but still ties to my core message. So you have to find a way, and it doesn't have to be subverting expectations, but you have to set an expectation to the viewer that I am worth paying attention to, that what I have to say is different and has value, and there's going to be a clear payoff if you watch to the end of this video.
Is it important to be polarizing? Because, you know, that comment, that hook there, you could argue it could be polarizing. Some people are going to go, no, Brendan, you're wrong. And here's the reason. But then they're going to watch it, right? In your book, you mentioned some certain topics get lots of engagement and sharing, politics being one of them. I think you mentioned that in your book as well. Politics is a massively polarizing subject. Religion's a massively polarizing subject. Those first 3 seconds, is it important to have a polarizing opinion so that you can get the next 10 seconds?
So polarizing can work, but it doesn't have to work. So it is not a requirement for success. For example, I'll just give you one big genre is top-down cooking videos of watching people cook, ingredients. There's no polarization in there. But the visual cues of how certain things are slid onto the screen, how certain, foods are introduced or things cut, those visual cues can drive and bring attention in. So I typically, when I work with clients, we never go the polarization route unless they really want to, because there's a lot of downside to it. But the short answer is you do not have to do that. You don't have to go negative.
Yeah.
You don't need to be polarizing in order to have success. If you want to go that part, if that's part of your brand, if that's what you enjoy, you can absolutely.
And if you are authentically that person, Piers Morgan's made a career out of just being a polarizing.
I just did. I don't know if you know Rob Moore, but I just did.
Yeah, I
his
know Rob Moore. Yeah, he's
podcast,
quite a polarizing guy.
Yeah, and that was like a completely different experience for me. The first 5 seconds of it, he just came out and like attacked me with a statement, and I was like, okay, I get it. I see what we're doing here, but that is what he enjoys doing. It's part of his brand and the type of content that he does. There is nothing wrong with that. But I just want to stress that you don't have to do that in order to have success. There's a lot of misconceptions about social media and making content successful. One is you have to go negative. Another is you have to be polarizing.
Yeah.
You have to do like stunts, or you have to have your cute dog videos or silly TikTok dance videos. No, there are so many different ways that you can break through with your message.
Yeah. Samuel Leeds was another one that Rob Moore did, and that was a very polarizing podcast, that one. I'm conscious we're here to try and talk about what the future of workplace looks like. And in this particular context, I want to talk about the importance of personal branding within the future of workplace. Can we discuss some of the preconceptions that businesses have, specifically enterprise-sized businesses, around this personal branding thing? So what do companies, you mentioned Nike, right? And they're exceptional at creating a story and all that kind of stuff. What do companies get wrong when they talk about, or when they're creating marketing campaigns, when we're specifically thinking about what we're talking about here? Nike is a really good example. What do they get wrong?
Well, there's a big difference between what Nike does and the traditional corporations. So I would say one of the challenges that I see with somebody like Nike is they are so over-reliant on their professional athletes.
Yeah.
They spend billions of dollars paying professional athletes to leverage their personal brand to promote their products. And it's been very successful. The challenge and the trap that I see companies trying to emulate that in is it's very expensive, on top of the fact that you're tying yourself to personal brands that you do not have control over.
Yeah.
So if one of those professional athletes you're spending millions of dollars or millions of pounds a year on does something controversial, well, that reflects poorly on your brand. And either that can negatively impact your sales because people don't want to, the consumer doesn't want to associate with that person anymore, or you have invested so much to prop this person up and that investment has gone by the wayside. So that model can work, but it's very costly. And what I see with companies like Nike and others is they rely so heavily on storytelling through those people that they forget to master traditional storytelling that works on social media without leveraging those stars. Like, how can you tell a compelling story without that? So to give you an example is like Duolingo, like killed it. Now, they used a mascot, but they created this mascot from nothing and built, $1 billion brand by leveraging social media without having to rely on paid endorsements or things of that nature. So Nike has been massively successful, and I think that they will be successful in the future. Is like, if I were Nike, I would, continue to do what I'm doing, but try and invest more resources into how do we actually master social media where we don't have to rely on a LeBron James or a major athlete in order to carry the weight of the story.
But is it important for other companies, organizations, not Nike, because obviously they're heavily reliant on that? Is it important for other organizations to have a personal ambassador? Because you mentioned authenticity, human voice, people connect with people. Even now you're looking at, you've got the boxing fight that's on the 19th with Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua. The background is massive, massive eyes on Jake Paul. You've got I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. A streamer's just won it recently, just a few weeks ago. So you get huge audiences over personal people, personal branding. Is it important for organizations to have a voice, to have a Elon Musk? I'm just thinking off the top of my head, Elon Musk, Richard Branson goes, with his balloon flying and all that kind of stuff. Is it important for organizations to have a person who is flying the flag?
So there's two levels to that.
Mm-hmm.
There always needs to be a personal voice attached to a company. But the question is, at what stage does that personal voice come in? So you can have companies where the masses, the message to the masses is not a personal voice. So like you think about a brand like TikTok.
Yeah.
TikTok does not have like a major spokesperson as it pertains to the masses. The voices are the content creators that pull people in. However, when an issue arises, for example, TikTok being banned in India, TikTok being banned or potentially being banned in the United States, well, that is where the CEO comes in and has that voice that needs to be a strong spokesperson that pushes the company forward. So there are instances where the company has a strategy where the internal personal brand, whether the CEO, an executive or something, is not the forefront of the message, but they need to be there at certain layers deeper in that conversation to make sure that there is a connection point to a real person. Then there's obviously other brands. Well, you mentioned Elon Musk with SpaceX or Tesla or Grok, XAI, like that can massively drive the forefront of that. Or Mr. Beast with Feastables, where he is the forefront of it. So that decision, I think, is company to company. Both can work. It just needs to be strategically mapped out to decide, like, if the voice is going to be on the front facing of that to the masses, do we have somebody that we really believe that can carry that, that is going to be in this for the long run, and is that strong voice? Or are we going to take the other approach where we're going to let traditional marketing or social media marketing ambassadors be that voice, but then 2, 3, 4 layers down, we're going to have that strategy for the others to step in.
Do you have a challenge with certainly enterprise corporate clients where we're talking about shareability, right? The first 3 seconds, man on the street, all that kind of stuff. Do you have a challenge where people go, well, I don't want to be an influencer?
Yes.
And so what does that look? What's your response to that? If someone goes, Brendan, what you're saying all makes sense to me. I love it. I like the thought of having my video shared hundreds of thousands of times. I'm just not interested in being an influencer. What would your response be to that?
90% of corporate clients do not understand social media. They don't understand the purpose of it. They don't know how to master it. And to your point, is they think, I don't need to generate a lot of views or a lot of engagement on my content because I am not an influencer. I'm not a social media brand. The reality is, if you are not doing it, your competitors are doing it, and you're going to get beat up by your competition. And just because you are mastering social media, just because you're succeeding on social media, A, doesn't mean that you're an influencer, and B, doesn't mean you have to be somebody that you're not in order to have success. And I think that again is a big lie and misconception about social media, is corporations and companies think that they have to be somebody that they are not in order to succeed.
Yeah.
They see somebody doing a silly TikTok dance video. They see somebody jumping off of a roof. They see somebody playing with their cute puppies, and they automatically assume I have to do those things in order to be successful with social media. You do not. You just have to master storytelling around your subject matter specific to these platforms.
Yeah.
And the big mistake that people are making in brands and corporations as it pertains to social media is they are leveraging marketing playbooks that were designed pre-social media. So like one of the biggest things is they're just niching down. I only need to speak to the specific person that I'm going to sell my products and services to.
Yeah.
If you do that, your reach is going to be flat out killed right out the gate.
Yeah.
Because you have to play to what these algorithms are designed to do. These algorithms are designed to do one thing and one thing only, keep people on the platforms longer. The longer people spend on the platforms, the more ads they can serve, the more profit they generate. And because they have a billion pieces of content to choose from every day, they want the content that they could seed to as many people as possible that can grab and hold attention so that they can disseminate that content.
Yeah.
So we call that the generalist principle, is how do you take your core expertise, your subject matter, and still speak to your core audience, but while making it interesting to the average and general person. And I can tell you, executives resist that at all costs. They're like, that is not how marketing works.
All of the advice you get, Alex Hormozy, all of them, niche down. You need to niche bigger. You know, you're not just providing a weight loss program. You're providing a ketone diet, which is a weight loss program. So you're niching down again. So everything that you read around marketing, specifically as a business owner, entrepreneur, founder, prior to even reading your piece, right, is around speaking to an ICP. It's almost the first thing that anyone ever writes. What's your ICP? So what you're saying is actually your ICP is not what's going to generate shareability, because you need to be general enough for that to actually reach an audience.
What I'm saying is ICP and niching down to the product that you're delivering is still critically important. But what you need to do is to be able to contextualize your content to speak to that ICP, but also speak to the larger audience. So I'll give you an example. There is a luxury real estate agent in Manhattan, New York, who sold over $15 billion worth of real estate across his brokerage. His name's Ryan Serhant.
Ryan Serhant, yeah.
Massively successful on social media. And his core audience is the wealthiest of the wealthiest of the wealthiest.
Yeah.
It's a fraction of a percentage.
Well, I know him, and I'm not his audience.
Exactly. So the game that he plays is, he's selling properties in Manhattan, New York that start at like 15 to 20 million, go all the way up to 250 million. So he plays what we're talking about with this generalist principle. Instead of saying, speaking to that specific ICP in like technical language and things of that nature, he says, let me take you on a tour of a $7 million closet. Let me take you on a tour of the most expensive penthouse in New York.
Yeah.
Let me take you on a tour of a $250 million ranch. Because within that, he knows that everybody would want to see those properties.
Yeah.
But because everybody wants to see those properties, he's generating millions and millions and millions of views.
Yeah.
And even if 0.001% of those millions of people are his core ICP, he is beating out his competition.
Yeah.
He is building his personal brand. You knew him. How many other luxury real estate agents do you know the names of?
Well, absolutely none. And I haven't watched Selling Sunset, so I don't know any of them either.
Exactly. But he is broken through by still servicing his core ICP, but branching out beyond that. So when I talk about the generalist principle and, not just niching down with your content, I'm not saying putting aside your business goals and who you're selling your products and services to.
Yeah.
I'm saying speak to your core audience in a way that also engages the larger audience. And that is where you will beat your competition every single time, because the economies of scale with the audience that you accumulate are just massive.
Is it oversubscribed? We started talking here, and within seconds, we mentioned Tim Ferriss, we mentioned Simon Squibb, we mentioned the career ladder. Within seconds. We didn't even have to think about it. These are just names that we just reel off because we know them. Now, if we find it that easy to reel these kind of names off, Is it oversubscribed?
No,
Why?
because there's 5.2 billion people on social media.
Yeah. But everybody's vying for the scroll stop, right?
Yeah, but 99% of the people creating content aren't doing the things that we're talking about. So if you because again, you're talking about the people that have risen to the top.
Yeah.
What about all the people that haven't?
Yeah.
Those are millions and millions, tens of millions of people that are trying to compete on that level or are thinking about competing on that level that will never break through because they don't understand or they don't know about the things that we're talking about. If you know about the things that we're talking about, you master the things, you will have success.
Yeah, I understand. And that's the advice you'd give to your corporate clients. Have a voice, have a face.
Yeah, be strategic about it. Again, I don't want you to do something and be something that you're not, but like you're going to, again, it's just you look at what's happening. Like the big news recently is Netflix acquiring Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
I remember when Netflix first started out shipping DVDs in the mail.
Yeah.
And, I started my career in the movie industry and nobody took Netflix seriously.
Yeah.
And they just kept building their brand, building their brand, building their brand, building their brand to the point where they're the largest powerhouse, if not the top 3 in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
That is going to happen to your business, your corporation, no matter what level you're at, if you don't establish yourself in the marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Social media has been kind of a nice to have up until this point. At this point forward, it's a requirement. You need to create some type of brand to have your voice to be heard, because if you don't, somebody else is going to take that attention, is going to take that voice away from you and beat you out.
Is there a trade that you go, do you know what, it probably doesn't work with you guys? Now, the reason I asked that question is there's a guy up in Liverpool, single plasterer. His YouTube page is called On The Trowel. There's a plug for him. Hundreds of thousands of followers. He's a plasterer. All he does is he goes into houses, plasters holes in walls, and he's got hundreds of thousands of followers. And I bet, I don't know him, don't know anything about the guy, but I bet his business is flying for the reasons we just mentioned, Ryan Serhant, a few moments ago. But that's a plastering trade, right? Is there an organization, a trade, or something like that where you go, the social media thing doesn't really align with you guys very well?
No. You just proved the point.
Outside of
a guy plastered walls can go viral.
Yeah.
Like they can build an audience.
Yeah.
Anything can work. Like now, if you're a drug dealer, should you be like, creating your content stuff? No, but there's also like former gangsters that, former mafia members.
He's the mafia guy. Yeah. What's his name?
Scorsese, I think it is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mispronounce it.
Yeah.
But he's got 1 million subscribers.
Yeah.
But no, anything can work on social media. And again, that's where so many businesses, so many corporations hold themselves back.
Yeah.
They're like, social media is not for us. We're not, they think social media is something different than what it is. There is an audience for everything. There is an audience for everyone if you know how to take advantage of it.
Well, that's so how do you then toe the line then between corporate speak versus personal branding? If I'm trying to, corporate lawyer, for example, clearly lots of NDAs, can't talk about a lot of things. How can I toe the line between what the corporate message is versus what my message is?
So from the personal brand's perspective.
Yes. With the goal of promoting your corporate legal practice, right? But clearly there's lots of NDAs in place. They can't talk about an awful lot of things. How do I, and then the corporate branding is vanilla. It's a logo. It's nice and shiny and it's very clean. My own personal message might be a bit more authentic, but how do I toe the line between getting a personal message out there versus making sure I don't piss off my employer?
Yeah. So we've worked in certain areas like health and wellness, medical, legal, where there's all of these restrictions. Restrictions can definitely, you can still make it work with restrictions in place. Obviously, you don't want to be doing things that you're not allowed to be talking about.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be talking about things that you're not allowed to be talking about in order to have success. I think that number one is what is the format that best matches the types of stories that you want to tell? What are the stories that you can, tell without breaking NDAs or things of that nature. Like there should be some kind of recognition of the larger company that you're going to be doing this and getting some type of approval, not on every piece of content that you produce, but just a general direction is, I'm a corporate lawyer. I want to talk about these types of stories. Maybe it's I'm reacting to different things in the news, different, elements that are happening in the industry, or I want to educate people about corporate law, or I want to talk about our company in a certain way or our products in a certain way. You obviously need to have clarity in terms of the direction you want to take, but you do not have to do things that you're not allowed to do. You don't have to do things that you're not comfortable doing in order to succeed.
Yeah, I understand. The idea behind us bringing you on is to talk about what the future of the workplace looks like. With that as its kind of underlying question, what does the future workplace look like for people, companies? We mentioned it a few minutes ago, right? If you're not doing this, you're going to become blockbusters, right? What does the future workplace look like when we consider personal branding? Is it going to increase? Are we going to see more of this? Are we going to see more people like the plasterer popping up on YouTube and creating YouTube channels? Are we going to see more career ladders in the middle of London? What does the future look like?
So we're going to see continuation of the decentralization of communication to the masses.
Right.
Meaning that the average person, whether it is somebody plastering a wall, whether it's an electrician, an engineer, a nutritionist, a yoga instructor, will have the ability to reach the same amount of people or more people than a major corporation. So as a personal brand working within a workplace, the corporation, the workplace will have to determine, am I going to lean into this?
Yeah.
Am I going to allow my employees to do this? Because some companies and corporations don't allow them.
Yeah.
But then also the future of the workplace is people working within, a corporate job. Mm-hmm. Are they going to then realize the power and the value of investing their time to build their personal brand, their presence? And building a personal brand and presence doesn't mean you have to have millions of subscribers or even hundreds of thousands to have impact. You could have a few thousand, 5,000, 10,000. So I think you're going to see more of these stories of people coming out of nowhere and gaining a tremendous amount of influence that will match or surpass corporations or brands that have been around for decades.
Yeah.
And I think it'll just be up to each company, each corporation to determine, well, what am I going to do with that?
Yeah. What about AI? We mentioned Daniel Priestley when we were having a coffee, didn't we? He's obviously pushing the AI thing quite a lot at the moment. I'm a fan of his as well. It's accelerated massively, right, these past few years, and the things that you can do now. In fact, actually, I saw a random one, speaking of Taylor Swift earlier, of a guy who was in his workplace up in Manchester, and I saw it on LinkedIn. It's a picture of him stood next to Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift's just wearing a normal kind of everyday outfit. It's not her, it's not her show. Normal everyday outfit, and I saw this link, this image, which is basically him and Taylor Swift stood there in Manchester shaking hands. And it's only when I read the caption that the guy then went, "This is an AI generated image of Taylor Swift and it's not real." And I, on my life, thought it was real. What impact is AI going to have on this conversation? Personal branding, corporate messaging. How do you know what to believe, what not to believe? What impacts are going to have?
Well, there's different levels to that question. Level number one is, what are you going to be able to believe? Mm-hmm. I think that first and foremost is going to come from the decisions that these platforms make in terms of how they are going to police AI-driven content. Are they going to allow content like that on these platforms? Are they going to be able to build sophisticated technology solutions to identify when something is AI? Does it become, for example, with the Taylor Swift example of you inserting Taylor Swift into an image of you, does that become copyright infringement in the same way that copyright infringement is policed in other ways? So in terms of the policing side of this, it really is going to come down to how effective, efficient, and the decisions and the policies that these platforms make, and potentially even governments make, on the use of AI-driven content. That's number one. Number two is AI is going to become a more and more entrenched tool into the workplace, into how we create content. So that is going to definitely happen, and it is happening right now. The one thing that I will say is AI is not a solution. AI is not going to build an audience for you. AI is not going to make you go viral. It's your understanding of how to leverage the tool to create great stories that build brands, whether it's a personal brand or a corporate brand.
Yeah.
So I think that every person, whether it's an individual, a company, a corporation, should be experimenting, should be using these tools on a daily basis, but it doesn't excuse you from the fact of understanding what it means to connect with people, what it means to build a personal brand, what it means to build a brand to tell an impactful story. Now, again, it comes back to the policing side of what happens, but do companies eventually get to the point where they are creating the AI spokesman for their company?
Yeah.
Instead of engaging an influencer or having an executive do it, do they create an AI avatar that represents that, company or person going forward?
Do you think we'll get sick of it? AI. So I looked at Mark Cuban, the Shark Tank guy. He invested in a bunch of real events companies. And his reasoning was, the events companies, when he broke down the actual business case for these companies, the revenue wasn't there, the profit margins weren't there. But his reasoning was basically, I think people are going to get sick of AI and sick of scrolling through AI-generated content. And I think people are going to want to go to live events. We're talking about authenticity again. And that was his reasoning. And for some reason, that struck a chord with me. And I went, I think he's right. Long-form content, live events. Daniel Priestley, again, live events. Do you think people will get a bit sick of the AI? I don't even know what the term is, but the AI-generated world that we're creating.
Will they get sick of it? No. But is there a delineation between will it take over? Will people prefer AI over traditional real world experiences? I don't think that will happen. But do I think that people are going to get sick of AI content and never consume it? No. And just to give you some examples, number one, here in London, they have the ABBA Voyage, show where they created digital avatars of the ABBA band and have these performances, and people absolutely love it. I think it sells out almost every time.
Yeah.
Or you think about animation movies. Animation's been around for 100 years, back to Walt Disney. We still like watching animation content.
Yeah.
I think that what you said about Mark Cuban is correct. I think there will always be a demand for in-person experiences that connect us to other human beings or to personal people.
Yeah.
But I don't think that we're just going to be like, one day AI content is gone, we're sick of it, we're not going to consume any of it.
Yeah.
I think there's always going to be a place for that personal connection to people. And I think that there will always be a place for the AI type avatar type scenario.
Yeah.
Now, the real question becomes, and I don't know when this is going to happen, is, because I was at the Westfield yesterday, and at Tesla, there's a line out the door to see the Tesla bot, giving people popcorn and stuff. What does a Tesla bot look like in 10, 15, 20 years?
Yeah.
Will that person look indistinguishable from, a traditional human being?
Jesus.
Will we be able to tell? How will that play out? But no, I don't think that people are just going to get sick of AI content, but I don't think that AI content is going to take over the world.
Yeah. Do you think in terms of the branding side of things that we're talking about here in the personal branding, do you think AI rewards laziness, or do you think it exposes it?
I think it exposes it, at least in my perception of it. Like, I can tell when somebody has sent me an AI written report and hasn't thought through it. I use AI every day to write things, create things. But either it's starting from something I wrote, or there's a lot of revision that has to go into it. So I would say that right now it exposes it a little bit more, because people think that AI is just a solution rather than a tool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things with AI is, if it can, we're talking about authenticity and branding and all that kind of stuff, and all the things that you spoke about earlier. It can be used as a kind of a mind map exercise where you gather ideas and stuff like that. You mentioned earlier around your spreadsheet, putting 20 of the top performing things in and, 20 of the lowest performing, which all follow the same. Is there a use for AI in that kind of scenario, or is all yours human?
So today it is all manually done.
Right.
We are testing AI for certain aspects of it, but there's so many qualitative nuances that need to be paid attention to. Like, AI is amazing with quantitative, amazing with data, numbers, and things of that nature. It is not great at the qualitative. It is not great at spotting, like a specific facial expression along with the pacing and the tonality of the voice matched with how did that first edit come in? What time? What was the impact of it? What was the impact of the way that this person came into it? There's a lot of qualitative elements that are not there, but we are integrating AI more and more into how do we take the output of our manual analysis and then create reports, strategies, and things of that nature for people.
I understand. We need to start rounding this up, Brendan, because I'm conscious we just we got into it, didn't we? And I'm interested in the conversation anyway. I'm interested in the topic, which is why I'm like, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. But unfortunately, we can't do that. Talk to me about, let's round it up with a question. If someone's listening to this, they work for a company and they hate the thought of getting in front of the camera, but they understand the benefits that it can bring for all the things we've already spoken about. What would your advice be to that person? They don't particularly like the thought of exposing themselves in front of the camera, but they know the benefits it brings.
Well, the first thing that you have to realize is if you don't pursue like growing your personal brand, you still have a personal brand. And by not putting yourself out there, it says something about you. No matter if you want to work within a career, if you want to have a career in a corporate world or a corporate job, even within that, by not putting yourself out there, you have a personal brand within the office ecosystem that you're in. You present yourself in a certain way when you show up to the office every day with your coworkers, your bosses, the executives around you. So the real decision you have to make is, do you want to control the narrative of your personal brand, or do you want other people to control the narrative of your personal brand? Do you want to control the narrative of your personal brand and build that brand so it equates to value down the road? Or do you want to let somebody else do that so somebody else can get that raise, somebody else can get that promotion, somebody else can work themselves up the career ladder while you kind of stay hidden?
Yeah.
To your question about, well, it feels uncomfortable to me to put myself out there, to put myself in front of the camera. Everybody feels uncomfortable. Like, that's normal.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to take time to overcome that.
Yeah.
Don't let that hold you back. And like, the biggest thing is like, try to understand, like, what is it that's holding you back? Because it's not about present day. It's likely about some childhood trauma or something happened to you with a parent scolding you for somebody, or a teacher scolding you, or friends making fun of you, or you having to give a class speech at some point.
Yeah.
Just try and identify, like, what is that uncomfortability? Try and sit in that and understand it. That will allow you to push past it.
Yeah. And do it. There's a James Smith. Have you come across James Smith? Another guy that I follow, and he's a big advocate for just do 100. Don't worry about it.
You can even create content and you don't have to put it out there. You don't have to post it.
Yeah. Yeah. Brendan, this has been brilliant. And like I say, it's a subject I'm interested in anyway, and something that I can talk to you for hours about. Let's kind of finish off with what you do now then. We've spoke about your career. We spoke about your books. We spoke about what got you there. What do you do now? How do you support people now?
At a macro level, we help match people with their ideal format. So we look at an individual, we look at a brand, we look at a corporation, what they're trying to achieve, their personality structure, what their communication strengths and weaknesses are, what resources they have available. Are they just working with an iPhone? Do they have an entire team? And we help identify key formats that we can match with them that will help them break through with their story. And our team will go off, identify those formats, but we'll also do the research of the 15 to 20 hours it takes to break down what's the difference between those high performers versus those low performers. So they have key insights and a blueprint on how to go off and execute content within those formats. So we do the strategy for them. We train them with their teams. We help them build teams, all in that goal to break through with their message.
Brilliant. So anyone that's kind of thinking about that personal branding message side of things, contact you. How can they contact you?
The best place to go is to go to hookpoint.com. They can also direct message me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I do view and watch or respond to those comments as well.
Brilliant. Brendan, thank you. Appreciate you coming in and enlightening me with your wisdom.
Yeah, and then thank you for everybody. If they go to hookpoint.com/SPOR, they can download free copies of my books as well.
Recommend them. Here's the books. Definitely recommend these. Thank you again. Thanks, Brendan.
Cool.
Appreciate it. Great. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and I certainly enjoyed having that guest on. Now, in order for us to close this podcast out, what I want to do is just highlight to you that we're an AV company. That's pretty clear. But what we do with a lot of our clients is we offer them showroom visits, basically. So we quite often go around a lot of the showrooms that are available to us. We're doing a big LED showroom visit. So if you want to come and see some of the latest LED technology that you can deploy within your meeting room, we're doing a big LED showroom visit over the coming weeks. The date's not fully confirmed yet, but we have put together a wait list. The link to that wait list is in the description below. If you're interested in coming along and seeing the latest LED and what you can deploy within your office space and the art of the possible when it comes to LED, click the link below, join the wait list. When we've got the date confirmed for our showroom visit, we'll then invite you to that showroom. We'll show you what the art of the possible is. For now, hope you enjoyed the podcast. Like, subscribe, click the notification bell so that you see the next one as well.